sincerely apologize. I never loaded this. So we're going to do it right now. And if you still have questions, hopefully this, you'll have an extra day to look it up. All right, so let's get to it. It's not that difficult to begin with, but nevertheless. So here, the first thing, the only thing they wanted was for you to determine if it was positive or negative. So now we know the rule, right? A positive times a negative is a negative, so this one would have been a negative. This is a negative times a negative, and that's a positive. And then a negative times a positive is a negative, right? Next, 4 through 9, we want to multiply, so this is obviously 0. A positive times a negative is a negative. Positive times a positive is a positive. And that's 78, positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. Remember, if the signs are the same, right? I mean, I guess to memorize, if the signs are the same, so if you have a negative times a negative, it's going to give you a positive. A positive times a positive is a positive. And then we have, if the signs are different, then it will definitely be a negative. And that works for multiplication or division, right? So negative times a positive is a negative, and 121. Here, we have two negatives, right? And these two negatives will turn into positive, and that positive is a 6, was also positive. It's just going to be a positive answer. So this is going to give us 54. We have three negatives. Remember, we talked about if you have an odd number of negatives, it's going to be negative. So this is going to be negative something. 21, negative 105. So if you think about it, let's do these two. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 7 times 3 is 21. So you would have gotten 21 positive. Times negative 5. Now you have a positive times a negative, and that's where we get that negative from, and 21 times 5 is 105. Okay. 10 and 11. Okay, so 10, I mean, it's multiplied by 0, so it doesn't really matter what we got previously. The answer is just going to be 0. Here we have a bunch of numbers, and then let's do this. So if we do this in order, a positive times a negative, it's going to be a positive, and positive times a negative is going to be a negative, and 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Times this one over here, right? And we have a negative times a positive, which is going to give me a negative again, right? So that's going to give me negative 1. And finally, this negative 1 times that last negative 1, it's a negative times a negative, which gives me a positive. Final answer, positive 1. So in essence, these two, right, these two negatives become a positive. And everything else that's there is also positive. So you end up with three positive factors, and you get a positive answer. See if you remember how to do this. Negative 3 to the second power, it's in parentheses of negative 3. So that actually means negative 3 times negative 3. Right? Everything inside the parentheses is multiplied by itself 2 times. Negative times a negative is a positive, and we get a 9. Repeat the 3 and the negative 2. So we get negative 2. Everything in the parentheses is multiplied by itself. In this case, 3 times. We have an odd number of negatives, so my answer is going to be negative. 2 times 2 times 2 is just 8. Careful here. That 2 only affects the 7. So the only thing that's being raised to the second power is the 7. So the minus sign gets to hang out outside for a little bit. And we get 7 times 7. So that eventually becomes negative 49. And that's the difference, right? So here the 3 is only affecting the 6. It's not telling that negative sign, the minus sign, the negative sign to multiply by itself to be signed. In essence, it's just that minus hanging out there, and then we have 6 times 6 times 6, right? 36 times 6, 196, so negative 196. You have to really be careful with these two. A and B simplify, so A is negative 2. So I'm going to put the negatives in parentheses just so that it sort of differentiates from the positive. B is 3, so I have a negative times a positive. Get negative 6. 8 times 3 times C, so again, negative 2 in parentheses, times 3 times negative 8. We have two negatives. These two negatives will become positives eventually, so whole answer is going to be positive. And we got, let's see, negative 2 and 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 and negative 8 is positive 48. A is negative 2. B is B is 3. I have to put it in parentheses to the third power. Minus A, which is negative 2, times C, which is negative 8. So that's the expression with its replacement, replacing it with the given value. So order of operations, so I'm going to do negative 2, stays here, and I'm going to do 3 to the third power, which is 27. Minus, and I'm not going to multiply anything, I'm just going to do it in order here. Now I can do these two. Negative 2 times 27 is negative 54, put in parentheses. Minus, and multiply these two. Negative times a negative is a positive, and 2 times 8 is 16, so I can write it without the parentheses. Now it's just a subtraction problem. So if you want to change it to addition, you can. And then we have negative 54 plus negative 16. Right? We got two negatives being added. Don't confuse this. We're moving further left to the on the number line. Right? We're becoming less and less in value, so we go further left. So negative 4 and negative 16 is negative 70. So imagine if you already owed $54, you'd be at negative 54, and then you buy something else, and you increase your debt, right? And you add another $16 in debt. You just happen to move to the left on the number line. Okay. You lose $5 each time you miss a school day. Yikes. Write an integer to represent a change in dollars in your dollars balance if you were to miss 3 days of school in a week. All right, so lose $5 is represented by negative 5 when you miss 3 days. So the change in balance would be negative 15. Explain your reasoning. 2 integers, all right. 2 integers, A and B have a product of 24. So A times B equals 20. What's the least possible sum of A and B? So if I took those two values and added, what's the smallest sum I could make? Well, let's look up all the factors. So I can have 1 times 24, right? Product of 24. I can have negative 1 times negative 24. That also gives me 24. So let me write equals 24, equals 24. What are the two numbers? I can have I can do 3 and 8. 3 times 8 is also 24. Negative 3 times negative 8 is also 24. I can do 2 and 12 is 24. I can do negative 2 times negative 12. Let me put this in parentheses. That also gives me 24. And I think I have one more factor here too. 4 times 6 is 24. Negative 4 times negative 6 is also 24. Right, so I have values. So let's call the first factor A and B, A and B, A and B, A and B. So A can be 1, A and B here it can be 1 and 24, or 3 and 8, 2 and 12, and 4 and 6. So which of these would give me the least, the smallest sum? Now, if you add 1 plus 24, so let's say A is 1 and B is 24, and you add them, right? In this case, positive 1 and positive 24, I get 25. Let's take negative 1 and negative 24. If A is negative 1 and B is negative 24, and I add those two, negative 1 plus negative 24 gives me negative 25. So that's a number that's very to the left of 0, right? So very least in value, very small number. And again, obviously, I think you can tell that if A is 3 and 8, positive 3 and positive 8, or positive 2 and positive 12, or positive 4 and 6, we're going to talk about positive numbers, right? Adding 3 plus 8, we got 11. 2 and 12, we got 14. And 4 and 6, we got 10. So all those actually don't give us the smallest sum, right? They give us a big value because they're all to the right of 0. So we're definitely interested in the negatives, right? Which of these pairs, negative 1 or negative 24, negative 3 or negative 8, negative 2, negative 12, or negative 4, plus negative 3. Which of these gives me the smallest sum? Well, we already know that negative 1 plus negative 24 is negative 25. Let's do the next one. Negative 3 plus negative 8. That's going to give us negative 11. Okay, so, well, negative 25 is further left, so it has smallest value. Let's do negative 2 plus negative 12, and that gives us negative 14. Okay, and then we have 4 and 6, so let's add those two. Negative 4 plus negative 6, and that gives us negative 10. So which of these four values further to the left? This guy right here. So that is the least sum, the least possible sum out of all the possible numbers that can give me a product of 24. Negative 1 and negative 24 gives me the smallest sum. Okay. Okay, so it's not clearing, clear. Okay, there we go. And then on the other side, we have an airplane that begins its descent. So imagine the airplane's at 22,000 feet right now, and it's given and in order to land, it's given by begins descent from 22,000 feet in order to land is given by the expression below, where t is a time in minutes. Okay, so complete the table. So imagine your airplane, and I know there's a graph at the bottom, but I'm going to use a little graph here. Right, so right now, at this very moment, the airplane is here, 22,000 feet above the ground, and 5 minutes later, right, so if you start the clock right now, you set your timer, and five minutes pass, where's the airplane? Well, it's going to be further down, right, a little bit down. Well, we know here that looks like every minute it's losing 480 feet. So if we do 22,000 plus negative 480 times 5, we're going to actually find out where the airplane is after 5 minutes. Well, it was at 22,000 feet. Let's multiply these two. And I'm going to use a calculator. Sorry. 480 times 5. 2,000, so that's negative 2,400. So after 5 minutes, the airplane went down 22,400 feet. So if I subtract that from 22,000, the airplane now is at 19,600. That's the graph we wanted to do at the bottom. So at the 5 minutes, that's where the airplane is. And then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try. After 10 minutes, well, after 10 minutes, you do the same thing. Let me change colors here. We're going to do 22,000 plus negative 480, which is how much is going down per minute, times 10. If you do that times 10, obviously, you're going to get 4,800 negative, right? Because it's negative 480 times 10. And 22,000 plus negative 4,080, 22,000 plus 4,000, negative 4,080, sorry, plus 4,800. It's going to, now the airplane after 10 minutes, it's at 17,200 feet, right? And then we want it at 15 minutes. I'll change colors again. 15 minutes. So at 15 minutes, it would be 4,800 times 15. So oh, sorry, 480 times 15, not 4,800. 7,000. So let me draw another one right here. Somewhere, maybe 22,000 plus negative 480 times 15. So after 15 minutes, the airplane lost 7,000, negative 7,200 feet. So if we subtract that from 22,000, I can't. Here we go, minus 7,200. The airplane now is at 14,800 feet. pick one different color or something. At 20 minutes, so let me go back to green is here. And at 20 minutes, hasn't landed yet, 20 minutes, right? 480 times 20. It's going to give a 9,600. So let me squeeze that in here. 22,000 plus 480, negative 480 times 20 minutes. And that's going to give us negative 9,600. That's how much it has descended. So minus, or it will be at 12,400. Okay, so that would be, and as you can tell, as time progresses, the more time, the lower and lower it gets. So those are the values that you should have written. And 5 minutes is 19,600. That's where the airplane is. At 10 minutes is 17,200, and then 14,800, and then 12,400. Let me see if I can. I'm going to erase this. Okay, I'll put it back up. I want the chart. Explain how many minutes it takes for the plane to land. Okay. Now, that's a little tricky because, let me write it here. So we had something that said 22,000 plus negative 480 times t, right? So when I do this, right, what if it's going to land, what should it equal to? Think about that. When it lands, what should all that equal to? That should equal to 0, because that's where the airplane is going to be, at 0 feet above the surface, right? It's going to be on the ground. And on the ground, 0 feet. So at this particular moment, so we set it to equal to 0 because that's when we know the airplane has landed, when the total is equal to 0. So how much time did it take for that to happen? So now let me write this over here as an equation. 22,000 plus negative, and I'm going to try to squeeze this in. Sorry. So we're going to get 22,000 plus negative 480t equals 0. And the reason I made it equal to 0 because when it equals to 0, that's when the airplane is on the ground, right? So how do we solve this? It's one-step equation, right? So let me do a one-step equation over here. Let me pick one. So let's say 10 plus 2x equals 0. How did you solve this last year? Well, it was in this case, a two-step equation. You did minus 10 on this side, you did minus 10 on that side, right? And then you brought down the 2x. 0 minus negative 10 is negative 10, and you divided both sides by 2, and x equals negative 5. So this is just an example how to solve a two-step equation, right? This is what you did last year. So same thing. On this side, we're going to remember an equation is two expressions equal each other, right? So we're going to try to isolate t to see what t equals to, and in order to do that, let's get rid of the 22,000. So we're going to do minus 22,000 on this side. If I subtract 22,000 from the left side, I must subtract 22,000 from the right side. These two go away. If you bring this down, you actually bring down negative 480t equals, and 0 minus 22,000 is negative 22,000. Right? Think about 0 minus 22,000. What is that equal? It can't be positive, so it has to be negative 22,000. Okay. Now, we want to isolate the variable, right? This says negative 480 times a number that I don't know. It's negative 22,000. So what can we do here? We are going to do the inverse operation of multiplication. We're going to divide this by negative 480, and this by negative 480. Negative divided by negative is a positive, right? So negative 480 divided by negative 480 is 1. 1 times t is t. I get t isolated, which is what I wanted. And then 22,000 divided by negative 480. I have no idea what that is. Why don't we find out? 22,000 divided by 480. It's going to be a positive because it's a, what do you call it? It's a negative divided by negative. So positive 45.83 repeated. That's how many seconds it will take for that airplane to land on the ground. Okay. So what did they ask for here? They want a little graph. Okay. Until it lands. So let's see if I can do one of these. Scale has to be appropriate. So at the bottom, our x-axis, right? I'm just going to extend that. Our x-axis is going to be time, and in minutes. All right, sorry, that time, the previous answer is 45.83 minutes, okay? And then our y-axis is our feet, so 22,000. This is our distance in feet, right? That's my scale. So let's see how I can do this. Right, oops. And then I need another one that goes over here, okay? So 22,000. Let's see, what would I do? Let's see, 22,000, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. All right, good. This is 0. I'm going to make this 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and then obviously I'm going by 2s. This is 22,000. So here's where our airplane is currently. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. We're not going to need anything about that. Below that, sorry. So at 22,000, right? When the clock, we start our time, and at 5 minutes, it's going to be a 19,600. So 19,600, it's just about 20,000, below 20,000. At 10 minutes, we found out that it was 17,200, so 16, 18, so 17,200, somewhere over here. 15 minutes is at 14,800. 12, 14, just above that. At 20 is 12,400, just above this. All right, and then if we keep going, and you notice that we're going down by every 10 minutes. Sorry. Every 10 minutes is 4,800 because it's 480 per minute. Right, and we can draw. We could have drawn a line here. Where's my line? Right, and when does it hit 0? So does my line match what we found before? Yeah, it sort of does. Look at that. Right, we're very close to our estimate, not our estimate, our equation. When we wrote our equation, 22,000 plus negative 480t equals 0, and we did this whole thing over here. Right, we got negative 480t equals negative 22,000. Divide both sides by negative 480. And t equals 45 on whatever not we got. I don't remember. So that's about right? So, and that was it. Okay. So again, I apologize for not posting. I have no idea what happened. Okay. But please do check.